Welcome back to the National Hurricane Center. This is Ken Graham right in our operations area. Everyone on duty, all eyes looking at Fred, looking at Grace, and we also have another tropical depression we're looking at. We're going to cover those as we go through this broadcast. The first one here, well, there it is. There's Fred, Tropical Storm Fred. Latest winds, we've got 65 mile an hour winds. We're moving northeast at 9 miles an hour. That's the latest update that we just got in. So, looking at this here, there's the center right about here. So we're getting very close, really close to Port St. Joe. We're getting really close to landfall here over the next couple hours. A few things to look at. You don't just look at that center point, but 65 mile an hour winds, that can be destructive. You put that heavy rainfall, you saturate the soil, and you put that wind on there, you get some trees down, you get some power outages. But the other part of this story is these rain bands on both sides of this. You look at some of these strong rain bands, Panama City, you start getting up to Mariana. I mean, there's just strong winds, heavy rainfall, and in some cases could be pretty destructive as well. On the other side, that's the west side we're talking about and the center, but this long trail of showers and thunderstorms could bring some prolonged areas of rainfall. And really looking at some of these, that's some strong convection in there, some heavy rain, some gusty winds. And remember with the tornado threat, 90% of those on that right front quadrant. So Tallahassee, Perry, getting up to Valdosta, any one of these areas, you have to watch out for those really quick spin up tornadoes with time. Look how far away. We go all the way over to Jacksonville, Daytona Beach, Gainesville. Look at some of those tropical showers, just all this moisture, the southerly flow coming up, bringing up this moisture Waycross, Douglas, all the way up into Georgia. So look, it's a large area. Heavy rainfall, high winds, got to be careful while traveling the I-95 corridor, I-10 across there, just some dangerous conditions. Let's look at that forecast, the latest forecast we have right here, 65 miles an hour for Tropical Storm Fred. Now, some of those winds, it's not just around the center. Remember, it's in those bands as well. It could extend about 90 miles out from that center, so some pretty significant winds in there. Not just on the coast, look what time. So here we are, current time. This is 7 a.m. on Tuesday, tomorrow. The system right on the Alabama-Georgia line, moving northward. That's at the same time bringing all that moisture with it. 7 p.m. on Tuesday, getting to Tennessee and portions of extreme western North Carolina, and even getting into Kentucky and West Virginia and portions of Virginia with time on Wednesday. So that whole time, you can see some significant rainfall, and that we'll be watching that extremely closely. Just pay attention to those warnings. Really listen to some of those warnings. It can be very dangerous at times. Here's what we're talking about with that tornado threat. Remember, it's that right front quadrant and the Storm Prediction Center. That's what they do for a living. They watch these areas that could produce these tornadoes. So Tallahassee, Dothan, areas in Florida, all the way up into Alabama and also into Georgia, you see those quick spin-up tornadoes. So that's what we're looking at with Fred, and we'll cover some of the rainfall here in a moment. But we also want to look at Tropical Depression Grace. The latest information we have, 35 miles an hour. Hurricane Hunter's been looking at Grace. They've also been looking at Fred, just constantly getting us the latest information. And the latest we have moving west northwest at 12 miles an hour, impacting Haiti. Heavy rainfall, winds where we still have that tropical storm watch up even for Jamaica with time. Going to see some of that. And this is Tuesday morning approaching Jamaica and start getting some of those impacts as well. And on that right side where you get some of the high winds, we've got tropical storm warnings up for Cuba as we continue to move the storm towards the west, eventually into Mexico, and then further into the Gulf. So watching this one real close as well. We've got some time to look at this, but something to bear in mind, especially if you're in some of these areas. You're traveling to Jamaica, you're traveling to some of these areas, just watch out because that could be some impacts for you there. Some of the other impacts we have associated with this, we'll look at this year, some of the arrival times. It's important to see if you're in Jamaica Tuesday morning, you're going to start seeing the arrival of the tropical storm force winds, and then into Mexico Wednesday p.m. So in the afternoon hours, evening hours, I'm into Mexico with time. So they're going to have to continue to watch that. And remember, I mentioned three of them, Dennis. There's our third one, Tropical Depression 8. You can see the slow movement. We've talked about this in previous broadcasts. The closer these dots are together, the slower the movement, and it's not moving very fast at all. So for Bermuda, you're looking at tropical storm watch, just real slow movement here. So mariners, if you're traveling, just bear in mind you have some of those impacts with Tropical Depression 8. there's the rainfall. Just an incredible amount of rainfall associated with our tropical storm Fred, not just on the coast. I mean, so look at some of these areas. We talked about Tallahassee across I-10 headed to the west. Some of these values in orange, 6 to 10 inches of rain. In yellow here, 4 to 6 inches of rain, not just on the coast, but look how it travels up into portions of southeast Alabama, towards Atlanta, just north of Atlanta, and then you get into the mountains of portions of western North Carolina and South Carolina as well. That could be dangerous, all the way up into Virginia. Some of these readings 2 to 4 inches, Roanoke, and then back towards the mountains, Cherokee, North Carolina. Some of these areas could see 4 to 6, even up to 6 to 10 inches of rain. That could be real dangerous, especially when you're talking about nighttime, and especially when you're talking about some of that terrain. You could get some significant flash flooding. So pay attention to those warnings, stay safe. Real important to continue to stay safe in these situations. And we're also looking at, and important to look at this, Weather Prediction Center. They look at those areas where you can get the best probability of getting that flash flooding. So right there, the Florida coast, right where we're making landfall with Fred, but also some of those mountains into North Carolina, into North Georgia as well. So just, you got to really be careful with these situations. We talked about the storm surge. We talked about some of those areas. We've been looking at that graphic, 3 to 5 feet of storm surge in some areas, and there's an example of what we're getting in Apalachicola. We've been looking at this data. There's where we should be, right there, but here's where we are. That's observed. That's over a 3.5 foot storm surge we're getting from Tropical Storm Fred. So low-lying areas, listen to those local officials. You got to be careful, and if you're in an area that floods, listen to them, and that's the area not to be. So that's the latest information that we have, really trying to pay attention. We got 3 different systems. We're one about to make landfall, and we'll continue to keep you updated. We got everyone on duty, and we'll pass the latest information to you as soon as we get it. This has been Ken Graham at the National Hurricane Center.